Welcome back to another explainer. I was digging through some research recently, and we're going to jump right into the hidden science behind a totally common gardening trick to discover how it literally changed human history. Today, we're looking at a single type of tree that has given us both one of our most ubiquitous medicines and a really profound understanding of how nature defends itself.
So let's kick things off with a bit of a riddle. What on earth connects a pounding headache, a sick tobacco plant, and a fresh little plant cutting? On the surface, right, these three things have absolutely nothing in common. But stick with me, because by the end of this explainer, you're going to see exactly how one single chemical family ties them all together in an absolute masterpiece of evolutionary biology.
Part 1. The Willow's Secret Power. To piece this puzzle together, we've got to look at the willow tree. Now, this is an absolute powerhouse of the plant world. There are like 350 to 400 distinct species of salix all over the globe, and they are legendary for their crazy, almost aggressive growth, especially if you're looking around wetlands or streams. Well, it turns out willows have this hidden superpower. It's a plant hormone called indole-3-acetic acid, or just IAA for short. Now, IAA is a type of auxin, making willows literal champions of rapid growth. When you take a cutting from a willow, this hormone actually goes in and reprograms the plant stem cells. It basically forces them to push out new roots. It's literally like a microscopic blueprint screaming at the plant to anchor down and survive.
Part 2. History of the Wonder Drug.
But hey, rooting hormone is really just scratching the surface here. If we zoom out and look at the willow's medicinal legacy, it is world-changing. Way before we understood the cellular biology, ancient healers knew there was some serious power hiding in that bark. Because, get this, willows are packed with another incredible chemical, salicylic acid. This is an aromatic compound split from a molecule called salicin. In fact, it gets its name straight from the tree itself. The Latin word for white willow is Salix alba, and this specific chemical is nature's precursor to arguably one of the most famous medicines in human history.
Just look at how human medicine evolved right alongside this plant. I mean, we can trace this all the way back to the 4th century BC. Hippocrates was actually encouraging women to chew on willow leaves to ease the pain of childbirth. Fast forward a bit to the mid-1700s, and Reverend Edward Stone conducts the very first clinical studies on willow bark. Then, jump to 1828, Johann Buchner purifies the active ingredient, turning it into these yellow salicin crystals. And finally, the big one. In 1898, chemists at Bayer synthesize acetylsalicylic acid. They did this to reduce stomach irritation, and in the process, gave the world aspirin.
Today, aspirin is a true, undeniable wonder drug. Just to put this into perspective, we're consuming an estimated 100 billion tablets globally every single year. 100 billion? We use it for pain relief, dropping fevers, and even heart attack prophylaxis. And every single bit of that stems from the evolutionary biochemistry of a simple riverbank tree. Now, here is where it gets really wild. Think about how we use it versus how the plants themselves use it. We're popping this chemical to reduce fevers, kill inflammation, and ease pain, right? But plants? Sometimes they use it for the exact opposite. They actually use it for thermogenesis. They generate heat. It's like a voodoo lily heating itself up just to attract pollinators. So yeah, definitely don't give a lily an aspirin if you're trying to cool it down. But jokes aside, plants primarily use salicylic acid as an alarm bell to signal systemic defenses and induce resistance against deadly pathogens.
Which brings us to Part 3, Plant Immunity and SAR.
So, salicylic acid isn't just some random byproduct. It is absolutely vital for the plant's biological alarm system. Just like you and I have an immune system, plants have these wildly sophisticated chemical networks to fight off disease. And researchers suspected this for a long time. Back in 1933, a scientist named Kenneth Chester was reviewing the literature and realized, hey, plants actually develop acquired immunity, kind of like animals do after their first infection. But for decades, nobody could figure out exactly how this invisible shield actually worked. And that brings us to 1961. A researcher named Frank Ross finally proved this concept, and he used Samson and tobacco plants to do it. Oh, and remember that sick tobacco plant from our riddle at the start? Yeah, this is it. So, Ross infected the lower leaves of a tobacco plant with the tobacco mosaic virus. Later on, he exposed the upper leaves to that exact same virus. And guess what? The plant formed way smaller lesions. Somehow, the plant had learned from that first attack and actually mounted a long-lasting, non-specific resistance across its whole body. Ross called this amazing phenomenon systemic acquired resistance, or SAR. If you want to visualize it, think of SAR as a plant-wide vaccine. A localized infection in one tiny area puts the rest of the uninfected plant on maximum alert. It completely locks down its defenses against future and even unrelated attacks. And the master key driving this entire process? Yep, you guessed it, salicylic acid.
Let's actually break down how this biological alarm triggers, because it's fascinating. A pathogen attacks a localized leaf. Immediately, the endogenous salicylic acid levels in that tissue just absolutely skyrocket. We're talking a 20-fold increase. This kicks off a crazy cascade of mobile signals. You've got chemicals with these alphabet soup names like MISA, AZA, and G3P acting as messengers, and they travel right through the plant's vascular system, the phloem. Once they reach the uninfected leaves, they cause NPR1 proteins to activate, monomerize, and literally move right into the cell's nucleus. This systemically turns on defense genes, which we call PR genes. Boom, the plant is fully armored.
Part 4. Brewing DIY Willow Water. Okay, so knowing all this high-level plant pathology, how do we actually harness this incredible biology in our own backyards? How do we take the willow's rooting hormone, IAA, and its disease-fighting salicylic acid and put them to work for us? Well, because willows are such crazy vigorous growers, we can sustainably harvest their branches. Plus, willows are a keystone ecological species anyway. They support something like 256 different butterfly caterpillar species and 26 specialist bees. So, pruning a few branches for a garden project doesn't hurt a thing, and it lets you tap directly into Mother Nature's ultimate rooting elixir. And you can literally brew this stuff right in your kitchen. It's super easy. First, you just gather 10 to 15 young, pencil-sized willow branches. You want that new growth because it's packed with the highest hormone concentration. Strip off the leaves and cut the twigs into little 1-inch pieces. This maximizes the surface area you're exposing. Throw them in a jar, completely cover them with boiling water, and just let it steep like a really strong tea for 24 to 48 hours. After that, strain out the plant material and you're good to go. Using your new brew is a total breeze. Just pour about ½ an inch to 1 inch of this willow water into a jar and soak the base of your fresh plant cuttings overnight. Think about what you're doing here. You are flooding those fragile cuttings with root-promoting IAA and that disease-fighting salicylic acid. You're giving them a massive head start before they even touch the soil. It's honestly like a cheat code for your garden. You can even water your established plants with it to give them a defensive boost. Just a quick heads up, store any leftovers in the fridge, because this homemade raw version does lose its punch after about 60 days. Now, if you're not exactly the DIY type, or you just want something that's totally shelf-stable, commercial fermented willow extracts are a fantastic alternative. The DIY method is awesome because it's fast and basically free, but these fermented plant extracts use lactobacillus bacteria to break down the organic compounds. What that does is balance the pH and allows the extract to last for literally years at room temp, all while giving you those exact same hormonal benefits.
Man, we have covered a ton of ground today, haven't we? From ancient Greek medicine all the way to cellular plant pathology to boiling twigs in a kitchen jar. So next time you trim a willow branch or soak a fragile cutting, or hey, even when you swallow an aspirin for a headache, take a second to think about this. Could this simple act of propagating a garden cutting be our absolute deepest, most tangible connection to the complex biochemistry that literally shapes human medicine? It's a pretty wild thought, right? Nature is incredibly connected. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.